The secret gold bunker in the Swiss Alps. Monday morning in the Swiss Alps. The air is thin, the roads are narrow. Most people come here to ski. But the armored trucks heading toward a mountain face aren't carrying tourists. They're carrying something much heavier. Behind a 3-ton reinforced steel door sits a secret. It was originally built as a nuclear fallout shelter. Now it holds a pile of physical gold that would make a pharaoh blush. We are talking about 148 tons of solid bullion. That is more gold than the central banks of Australia. It is more than Qatar or South Korea. But this bunker does not belong to a country. It belongs to a company that most of the world calls a scam. This is Tether. They make USDT. These are digital dollars that power the shadow economy. For a decade, the US government tried to kill them. The media called them a ticking time bomb. Wall Street called them a fraud. But in 2026, the bomb did not go off. It evolved. Tether just reported $10 billion in profit for 1 year. They only have 100 employees. They just launched a federally regulated coin called USAT. It is issued by a national US bank. They hired a top official from the White House. He is leading their expansion into Washington, D.C. Tether is no longer just a crypto company. They are the world's first stateless central bank. They are executing a Trojan Horse strategy. It has made them the most powerful entity in finance. But why hide $24 billion in gold? To understand that, we must look at their move in America. Section 1. The Identity Crisis and the Genius Act. For years, Tether was the bad boy of crypto. They were the ultimate offshore enigma. They were based in the British Virgin Islands. They lived in the grey zones of finance. Traditional banks were too scared to touch them. New York hedge funds viewed them as a black box. They feared it would blow up the financial system. But Tether had a weapon. They were incredibly useful. When you bought a USDT token, Tether took your cash. They used that cash to buy US government debt. By 2025, they were a massive lender to the government. They held more US Treasuries than Germany. The government realized they could not just kill Tether. Doing so would cause a global financial earthquake. In July 2025, everything changed. The Genius Act was signed into law. This was not just another boring regulation. It was a peace treaty. The US created a framework for stablecoins. It called them permitted payment instructions. This ended the era of regulation by enforcement. But there was a catch. To play in America, you had to be onshore. You had to be transparent. You had to be regulated by the feds. Tether knew USDT was seen as dirty in Washington, so they did not try to fix USDT. They performed a corporate mitosis. They created a new entity called Tether US. They wanted a coin that followed every American rule. They named it USAT, but they needed a face Washington could trust. Enter Hines. He was a former football star. He was the White House crypto czar. He left his government post for Tether. He walked straight into the CEO office. In finance, we call this the revolving door. Tether bought the man who wrote the rules. Hines is young and photogenic. He is deeply connected to the MAGA ecosystem. He speaks the language of Washington. He sells Tether as a patriotic instrument. With Hines, Tether planted its flag in America. But this was only half of the plan. They were preparing to rule two worlds at once. Section 2. The Double Track Strategy. Tether was playing a game of geopolitical chess. They created a financial firewall. Think of it as a corporate split personality. On one side is the domestic shield, USAT. This coin is issued through Anchorage Digital Bank. That is a federally chartered US institution. Its reserves are managed by Cantor Fitzgerald. Their CEO is the Secretary of Finance. USAT is clean and transparent. Wall Street can hold it without fear. On the other side is the global sword, USDT. This version still lives offshore. It is the lifeblood of the global south. People in Nigeria use it to save their wealth. Citizens in Argentina use it to hide from inflation. They do not care about the Genius Act. They care about liquidity. USDT is the Wild West dollar. It operates where the US banking system fails. This is the double track strategy. Tether has achieved the impossible. They have a saint branch that follows the rules. This keeps the regulators happy. They have a sinner branch for the shadow economy. This branch captures $1 trillion market. This structure protects them from destruction. If Washington freezes offshore flows, USAT stays safe. If the US market gets too strict, USDT is the exit. It is a design for a world without borders. The result is a massive profit machine. $10 billion in net profit for 2025. Goldman Sachs needs 40,000 people for that. Tether does it with 100 people. That is $100 million per employee. But they are not just holding dollars anymore. They are moving into the physical world. They are starting with energy and gold. Section 3. The Golden Fortress and Commodity Warfare. Look at Tether's balance sheet to see the endgame. Most tech firms buy back their own stock. Tether buys physical hard assets. As of 2026, Tether is a top 30 gold holder. They own 148 tons. Why store digital profits in a Swiss bunker? The answer is de-dollarization insurance. Tether is a treasury whale, but the dollar is facing an uncertain decade. Hoarding gold hardens their balance sheet. If the dollar collapses, Tether survives. Their gold is a sovereign-level hedge. But they are also weaponizing it. They hired head traders from HSBC. They are running a massive gold trading hall. They are competing with JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. They are also moving into commodities. In 2025, they funded a crude oil deal. It was worth $45 million. Traditional banks are retreating from this market. New rules make commodity lending too risky for them. Tether stepped into that void. They do not need a 3-week approval process. They fund oil tankers in minutes. They are the lender of last resort for energy. They are also funding wheat and grain. This is the commodity endgame. If Tether funds your fuel and your bread, they are safe. You can ban a crypto exchange. You cannot ban the entity moving the world's oil. This leads to a controversial theory: the idea that the US is actually using Tether. Section 4. The Trojan Horse Theory. Washington has realized something important. The US needs people to buy its debt. China and Japan are backing away. China dropped its share of debt significantly. The US Treasury has a demand problem. Tether is the magic solution. This is the Trojan Horse Theory. A worker in Nigeria buys USDT to save. Tether takes that money and buys a treasury bill. Tether imports demand for stability from abroad. They export it to the US Treasury. They are a vacuum cleaner for global capital. They spray that capital back into America. This is why the Genius Act exists. Stablecoins are the best vehicle for dollar power. The government turned a disruptor into a creditor. Tether is a marginal buyer of US debt. They are practically a department of the Treasury. They keep the lights on in Washington. Tether is a geopolitical tool. They look like a rebel, but act like an ally. But there is a danger in this marriage. Tether is also building its golden fortress. They are playing both sides of the fence. They prop up the dollar today, They prepare for its collapse tomorrow. Section 5. Conclusion. The Post-Country Corporation. We are entering the era of the post-country corporation. Tether has no traditional headquarters. Its employees are scattered everywhere. It earns more than the biggest banks. It uses the staff of a small startup. It owns the debt of the superpower. It owns the gold of the ancient world. It owns the energy of the modern world. The 2026 pivot revealed the true endgame. Tether is not trying to replace the dollar. They are trying to be the dollar. They created a stateless central bank. It is more agile than the Federal Reserve. It is more liquid than Wall Street. You can no longer ignore them. If you drive a car or eat bread, you are involved. You are already living in Tether's world. One final question remains. When a company is more powerful than a country, who actually holds the keys?